speaker will be Major General Dyess. He'll be talking about demand reduction and setting the conditions to enable multi-domain battle.
Thanks. I very much appreciate the opportunity to come and talk today. Some of this reminds me of the Disney movie called Tomorrowland, and you got some of that this morning as discussions about what is the future and what the Army is going to be like in 10 years. I can describe for you the job that I've been the acting director of the Army Future Center, the Army Capabilities Integration Center for the last 14 months, my perspective on multi-domain battle, and we helped define and coin that term, multi-domain battle. And what does that mean for the Joint Force and the Army as part of the Joint Force in a future operating environment? Number one is that believe that we're going to be contested in all domains, and that's air, land, sea, cyber, and space, and sometimes simultaneously. We're going to, as according to the National Defense Strategy, be confronted with a near-peer competitor, read Russia, China, that have capabilities that are overmatching our capabilities today. It's going to be a complex environment to include dense urban cities. It's going to be increasingly lethal. And quite frankly, it's going to challenge our deterrence. Deterrence is something, having worked with the Marine Corps over this past year in the multi-domain battle concept, is something that we must have, because if we do not have deterrence, that means that we have failed and some bad actor has now taken it upon him or herself to go into armed conflict. Armed conflict and the nature of war is going to be unchanging. It's going to be deadly, bloody, wasteful. Character of war will continue to change. And that's what we've got to keep up with, the character of war, in order to enable our forces to take all of our men and women to a conflict zone and bring them back alive. We wrote a paper over this last year called a Demand Reduction White Paper, and that is to enable the multi-domain battle concept. How does it do that? We think that based on what we wrote in our concept, we need to have combat forces that are able to operate semi-autonomously and independently on a future battlefield with about 7 days of supply. And if you're familiar with Army forces, there's no way that we can operate with 7 days of supply today without resupply. Armor Brigade combat teams, they consume water and fuel and ammunition at high rates. So in order to be able to operate semi-independently with 7 days without resupply, we've got to think differently about how we're going to conduct operations or produce the things that we need closer to the point of need, or use manned and unmanned teaming to our advantage, or improve the efficiencies of the equipment that we have right now, or a combination of all of those things. I'm going to take about half of the time that's been allocated to me, and I'm going to introduce Army Research Lab Dr. Anik Giri, and he's going to talk about, but not right now, but I'm going to introduce him because he discovered in the lab, and he'll have a chance to talk about this, a way to produce energy closer to the point of need. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the way, but in a white paper and thinking about Tomorrowland, where you have innovators that come from different backgrounds in order to accomplish a mission or a task, this is a way, and it was very exciting to me to see it, so I wanted you to see it as well, because it's right in line with our thinking about producing energy or class of supply closer to the point of need. We did a study inside of TRADOC that looked at what the Russians and the separatists did in the eastern Ukraine, and we found that combinations of old things used in new ways and new things used in new ways combined to show us that we have gaps in the way we operate. For example, they're able to use small UASs to contact large UASs to contact their long-range fires and then bring down devastating amounts of indirect fires in a very rapid manner. So what that means to me, if we're competing against a near-peer competitor in the future, any large concentrations of Iron Mountain, large convoys, large CP locations, COPs, FOBs, etc., are now just targets when you're in a near-peer competitor environment. So let's look at the convoys. If we're able to look at the things that we utilize the most, Class 1, water, Class 3, fuel, Class 5, ammunition, are there ways that we can work through our labs, through innovation, through others, through research, that we can reduce the amount of Class 1, 3, and 5 that we have in those convoys out on the road? And how can we produce that closer to the point of need? We also looked at how much would it take to reduce the demand. We think it's about a 30% reduction in demand of our current formations that would keep us from having to be resupplied within 7 days. And we've got to be able to maintain our combat power while we're doing that. We want to have all of the advantages. We do not want to cede any advantage to any competitor. We want to be able to have the advantages to ourselves. And so looking at what the Russians and the separatists did in Ukraine, combined with the lethal effect and the near-peer competitor, we think we've got to look at things slightly differently. Now, is that going to happen totally in the next 10 years? We won't be able to replace the internal combustion engine in the next 10 years. But the internal combustion engine has been in force for about 125 years, and we've continued to improve it. Is propellant the way that we're going to send lethal effect downrange through artillery and bullets? I'm challenging the group that's here, that will see this on video, to think about how we might be able to reduce that demand, how we can produce it closer to the point of need, how can we be more efficient with the things that we have, and how can we keep from having large targets out on the battlefield. We have copies of the demand reduction white paper available for you as handouts here, and at this time I'd like to introduce Dr. Aneet Giri from the Army Research Lab, because, and he'll tell you, they were looking at material science, having a better, stronger material, and then they found a way how to produce hydrogen, and he'll tell you about that. To me, that is really cool and innovative and now patented, and I think I really appreciate what you did. I wanted to share my podium time with you to do this demonstration. So I'm going to step off the stage. If you want a copy of the demand reduction white paper, see my guys. Chris, where is that located? Back at ARL's table. So Dr. Giri, please. And you got to see this. It's really cool.